But after service, I go back and watch the service, to make sure that for the James. I part my hair from the left to the right, and my hair was parted the other direction. It looked very, very strange. So I don't know how that camera did that of its own accord, but um, just how you look on camera. So normally you look better on camera, but that's not me. I look worse. All right, so we are finishing up our 4-week series. This has been an introduction to our church. Our first week was the history of our church, which is a short history. It's been about 2.5, 3 years since we've been here. And so included in the history of our church was the history of me and my family as the founding pastor and as my family being the first members of the church, you could say. What brought our family to Elizabeth City area and to Elizabeth City Baptist Church. The second week was the beliefs of our church, and that actually took 2 weeks, and we broke that up into 3 sections. The beliefs, which are pretty mainline. Nobody really have any arguments or debates about that. And then we went over the distinctives, which are also beliefs from the Bible, but things that you would see at our church that you might not see at another Baptist church. And some of those been the music and the dress code and the King James Bible. We talked about those issues, and we also gave biblical reasons for why we have that stand and why we believe what we believe. And then we had convictions, which are just a couple small things we do. Our service times, we have Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. Not everyone does that. You could have church on Thursday or Friday or any day of the week that you please, but we do that because it gives opportunities for people to grow. And then the third week, last week, was the vision of our church, where we are going. And from a ministry standpoint, we want to start more Sunday school classes, perhaps have another van ministry, a van route. From a building standpoint, we are working right now on our parking lot, our parking area, and so we're getting quotes, and we already have quotes for that, and we're still trying to move forward on that. And so today is going to be the last week, the structure and the organization of our church. I do have a handout, and let me see. I'll go over that. I'll hand those out in just a minute. But I'm going to try to do my best to go over sort of the behind the scenes. If you've been coming to our church for just a few weeks, it doesn't take long to know a lot about our church because we're pretty open. Everyone is very laid back, very friendly. And so if you want to know something, just come up and ask. And if you've been to our church for a few weeks, we know you can know where we stand on because of how we live and how we practice, how the Bible is preached. And not all churches preach the Bible the way that we would preach the Bible here. And that's why we don't have a glass pulpit, because when you pound it, those things break. That's why they don't pound the pulpit, because they're made out of glass. I mean, they break, poor fella. And, we, the soul winning and the visitors. And so we do events to try to bring people in. Last week, we had a really good time. We had our county sheriff and our chief of police, and we had a couple deputies that were here, one that we missed that I had to give after service. But we'll do events like that throughout the year to reach out into our community to let them know. And so if we just put a sign on the door and we wait for them to come to us, we're going to be waiting a long time. And you better hold your breath, and because it's going to be a long wait. And so we go out to them. And so anyways, I'm going to try to go to the behind the scenes. The leadership of our church, or some churches would call it their staff. Obviously, I'm the pastor. Brother Philip is not paid staff. He's volunteer. But Brother Philip, for all practical purposes, would be my right-hand man and my assistant pastor. Whenever I'm out of town, he oversees the services. This last time I was out of town, just a couple months, whenever that was, he preached on a Wednesday night. I'll be out of town in 2 weeks, not a Sunday, but I'll miss a Wednesday, and he'll be preaching and running the service. So he would be the leadership of the church. Brother Philip did not move to Elizabeth City with us. I know it seems that way, like Brother Philip's always been there. But after we started the church, we had been open for about 3.5 months, and I met him, invited him to revival, and then he came to a revival meeting on a Wednesday night, and then on Friday over dinner, I won't tell that story again. That's a funny story. On Friday over dinner, I just explained to him how to be saved. And so the Lord had already been working in Philip's life. And so after he got saved, he got baptized maybe a few weeks later. And over time, met Miss Kayla, and then now they have their own family started. So Brother Philip is a product of Elizabeth City Baptist Church, from someone that, that got saved and got baptized. And then through the process, first he was an usher. And then I said, hey, I want you to do a little bit of this. And then he had a men's class that he taught. And then with song leading, I said, brother, I want you to lead song leading once a week on Wednesday night when there's not as many people here. And so you started on Wednesday, and then he graduated Sunday morning, Sunday night. Now he does a phenomenal job. But that's been a process over the last couple of years. But he would be my right-hand man um, as far as that would go. Um, Now, as far as who does what behind the scenes, sometimes you come to church and you see all the ministries, and you see what's going on, but there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes you may not be aware of. Sunday school, for example, we have Miss Patty Swain teaches the ladies class, and she came to our church. I think it was probably late last year. I had to look; it's hard to remember. Probably late last year, and she was a transfer from another church. She was attending a Baptist church that was about 45 minutes away. And so when she found out about our church, and we're 5 minutes from her house, this makes sense. And so she has been a blessing. So she joined our church. And not long after joining our church, I knew she wanted to teach, and I knew she had the ability to teach. And so she teaches our ladies only class. And so ladies of all ages can attend that class. And she's been doing that for quite some time. Obviously the class in here, the auditorium class, is for all ages. Sometimes I don't think we have any. Yeah, well, one teenager today, but normally we have a few teens in here. And then I teach this class the last probably few months before this little period. Brother Philip, him and I would teach every other week, and so we would rotate it here. We have, of course, the nursery. I'll get that in a minute. The nursery that's going on right now. We have a nursery for all of our services, and that takes nursery workers. Okay, and the nursery is a lot of work. Upstairs, we have the children's class, and that's a very broad range. And so we have boys and girls, and basically they would go from my daughter Lydia is 4 years of age. She's probably the youngest in there. They would go up to about 11 or 12. Sometimes when we have teenagers now, we have them sit in here in this Sunday school class, but it's not going to be that way forever. And then we're working to fix that. But my wife, Heidi, and Brother Philip's wife, Kayla, they work together and teach the children's Sunday school class, and sometimes they'll alternate teaching and things. And so those are the Sunday school ministries that we have. Our music ministry, my wife has been, of course, our primary piano player. Miss Amber, who's in the ladies class now, she will fill in when she can. And at one time, we had her and my wife playing pretty consistently, but she'll fill in when she can. With my wife having the baby recently, Miss Molly Lyman has been a great blessing. It continues to be a blessing playing the piano. And if you'd like to play the piano, we just have to have you audition, okay? And if Miss Molly approves, then you can get on. But the piano, the music ministry, we're very selective. So everybody can serve everywhere else, but the music, we're selective. So our church is blessed with having, 3 piano players, 3 people that can play the piano. And singing and music-wise, we, over probably just a few months ago, started our children's choir. They practice every Sunday afternoon at 5:30. And it takes some work because, we're trying to get the children to come, and the parents have to bring the children, or the band will pick up the children. But we'll have about 6 or 7 children in our children's choir, and they're singing tonight. So make sure you're here tonight to hear them sing. My wife and Brother Philip's wife and another young lady, Miss Abigail, who's out of town this week, and she's 19 years of age. So they help, and they run the children's choir. And it's not a children's program like an Awana or a Master's Club or a Patch the Pirate Club. Maybe it one day will evolve into that, but for now it's a memory verse and then some basic singing. But they handle that ministry there. Cleaning, we have a couple of different cleaning times. We have a midweek cleaning. Miss Cheryl Squire, who is here Sunday nights and Wednesday nights. So if you only come Sunday morning, you won't get a meter. But she comes normally on a Monday, Tuesday, and perhaps a Wednesday, and she'll clean the church. And she's been doing that for quite some time. And then we have a Saturday or Sunday morning time, and Miss Alicia, I don't know why your name's so ahead. Miss Alicia comes to tidy up the church for Saturday and Sunday. And then after Sunday morning, normally Miss Miss Shan Parchment is her last name. Miss Shan Parchment. She stays a little bit late after morning service, and she'll clean up from breakfast. On the breakfast crew, we have Miss Natalie, who, uniquely enough, Miss Natalie came to our very first church service. And over the first couple months, she had gotten saved. She got baptized. And so she also is a product of Elizabeth City Baptist Church. And for a long time, she has faithfully been making the breakfast, comes early on a Sunday morning to prepare them. Back to the music, we also have a couple different music groups. We have a men's quartet, Brother Philip, myself, and 2 other teenage boys that are here every Wednesday. And so we practice on Wednesday night, and we'll try to sing about once every month or every 6 weeks. And normally all of our special music is performed on Sunday night. And so we do that on Sunday night because we want people to come back and adds to the service. We have a ladies trio, my wife, Brother Philip's wife, and Miss Natalie. She has a beautiful voice, by the way, and she sings great. And so they practice on Sunday evening after church, and they sing about every 4 or 5 weeks. My wife and I sing a lot together. We did that before I became a pastor. At the church we're at before, we would sing. I mean, at one time, I think I was in 5 different music groups. We had a lot of music groups, and so I'd be in this group and this group and this group and this group and choir. And so we would sing a lot, and that really helped because starting the church from the ground up, we were able to provide some special music that, sometimes you don't always have. So that's our music ministry. The maintenance of the church, as far as the grass cutting, that's normally me and a couple of the teenage boys, and I'll pick them up, which now they're back to school. So I cut the grass the other day, and that's why it looks so good, because I cut it, they didn't. And but anyways, they help with that maintenance, and then building maintenance. Brother Kelvin is a huge help, and so he volunteers a lot of his time. And when we have bigger projects, he might as well volunteer for what we pay him for that. And so he has saved. When I say he's saved the church hundreds, probably thousands of dollars. He has done some work on our church van, the vehicles, and he has really just been a help to the members here. He does a lot with that. Brother James Teachy, when we have projects, he'll come. And Brother Teachy's been up on the steeple. Okay, I kid you not. Imagine a 12-foot step ladder on the roof, and Brother James at the very top, holding on with one. I mean, you're not supposed to do that. And but anyways, it was dangerous. I said, Lord, please don't help him fall. Please don't let him fall. And so we have a lot of the men. So when we have big projects like that, obviously I would do most of it, but I would try to get other people involved, and also just men that are experienced. Brother James and I this week, our goal is to get that door fixed, and we have to reframe it. It's not as simple as get another door. You can't get another door like that. And so, but anyways, that's some of the maintenance. Our van ministry, Brother Philip heads up, and we used to have another man that did that. He moved down to Florida. And so Brother Philip and his wife, not only do they run the van, but on Saturdays they visit the van riders, and we try to recruit more riders. And that takes a lot of work because you have to follow up with them. And again, when you're picking up kids and teenagers, their parents are not saying, go to church. Sometimes their parents are saying, I don't care. And so you really have to build a relationship with the kids and teenagers. Right, Michael? Because we want you to come to church because you love the Lord. Can I get an amen, Michael? Amen. That's right. And so they do a great job on that. They've done that for quite some time. We don't have any deacons at this point, and the main reason why is when you read the Bible in the book of Acts, they called deacons when they needed the deacons. So you don't find deacons being called in chapter 1 or chapter 2, but as the church got bigger and as there was a need for the widows and more servants in the church, that's when deacons were called. And deacons also in the Bible were servants of the people, not ruling over the people, not making all the decisions for the church, but helping the pastor and helping the leader make decisions for the church. So we don't have any deacons yet, not because we don't believe in them, because we do. And our Constitution and bylaws lays out the process for voting or electing the deacons. So when we get to that point where we need that, and we have someone that's eligible, and we have someone that would like to take that responsibility, then we would cross that bridge. All right, Brother Phil and Michael, if you could help me real quick. The two of us should be enough. I'm hoping we have enough. One per person. This is, and I'm keeping track of the time because we've already turned this 4-week class into 5 weeks. I don't want to turn it into 6 weeks because I've already got the material for the next period of Sunday school. This is our servants' covenant, okay, to help you understand a little bit about the structure of our church. If we have somebody that comes and they say, Pastor, I want to get involved at the church and try to do something. Raise your hand if you have not got one. Okay. Hey, have them share one, Michael. Yeah, y'all can share, and I'll get you another one later. Yep, for free. Okay. Hey, right over here, right? We need one over here, Michael. How many do you have? You have 3. Give 2. 1 and 1. Okay, there we go. Good job, Michael. So if somebody comes to church, say, Pastor, I want to be involved in the church. I want to do this. I want to do that. And they have a specific ministry. Or if they come and say, Pastor, I just want to help. And what could I do to help? Yeah, you give this to the back row. Right there. Or you need one? Yeah, give one right back there. So this is basically a volunteer policy, a servant's covenant that we have. And I'll just go through this very briefly. The third paragraph, any paid employee or volunteer serving at Elizabeth City Baptist Church must first be a faithful, active, supporting member of the church. For the most part, we have stuck to that. And if we had a whole staff of people, of course, that were at the church and they weren't members of the church, well, that would cause some problems down the line. Because if somebody first is not committed to being a member of the church and to adhering and being part of ECBC, how can they be trusted with the responsibility of faithfully executing, their ministry week after week? When we first start the church, and this last couple of years, we have not, depending on the ministry, we have not been really, really anal about this per se. If somebody comes, and they're saved and they're going the right direction, and say, hey, can you help in the parking lot, or can you do this? And so it's not that we require everyone to be a member to do anything in the church, but if we have someone that's going to be consistently in the long term that doing a public ministry, this is where we would start in them joining the church. Of course, you won't be able to join the church unless you've been saved. Amen. A saved membership, and you have to be baptized by immersion. I'll go over the details of how to become a member here in a bit. So these are just some things we go over. The Bible verse, let all things be done decently and in order. That's why we have this, because we have to do it in order, because God said so. The King James Bible, we've talked about that. That's all we use. And so if we had a Sunday school teacher and I went up there and they had a coloring page with an NIV Bible verse, I wouldn't throw them out of the church. But I'd say, hey, we're not going to use this, okay? So that's why we have that in there, because some people, they just don't know or unaware. The music, any music that we would have played has to be approved by the pastor. So our singing groups, if somebody comes, say, Pastor, I want to sing a special, it's not sing whatever you want to. What would you like to sing? And let me look at that, make sure that it's spiritual music and godly music. And so we have that there. Personal conduct, just a couple, little things there. The next page, time, we go over people, want people to be on time, of course, for their ministry, regardless of what it is. Any problems, I want to make sure that I'm aware of the problems. The dress code, as you notice with our ushers wear a shirt and tie. And so, that's if you can't work at McDonald's or Chick-fil-A without having some sort of uniform. And so for the ushers, we ask to wear a shirt and tie. We don't have ushers coats, but maybe one day we will. Wouldn't that be sharp? Some like ECBC blue ushers coats and to match the chairs. And then for our ladies that serve publicly, okay, and you've noticed that all the ladies that serve in the nursery, maybe the nursery or singing or the piano or teaching Sunday school, they all wear a dress or skirt. What people do at home is their business. And, but when they're serving publicly at the church, it falls under the pastor's jurisdiction, and we're also representing the Lord. So I have to lead our church in the direction that I believe is right. So, of course, it'd be my desire that all the men at the church would dress modestly dress right throughout the week. And it would be my desire that all the ladies of the church would dress, as the Bible would teach, and skirts and dresses throughout the week. But as the pastor, I don't believe it's right to require someone, hey, if you're not going to, do this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you can't serve here. That's not a stand that I'm willing to make. But while they're serving publicly, we just ask that they do this. And for the most part, we haven't had any problems with that. Okay, so this is just to understand the structure. This would be something where we would start if somebody wanted to serve. And of course, we have a usher's manual that details some usher training. And so it's about a page or so long. And so earlier this year, we had an ushers meeting, just going over some basics, how we do things, how we want to do things. It doesn't always work out. Things don't always go the way that they should. But we do have a training manual for that. For the nursery, my wife heads that up, and we have a nursery manual. I think the last couple of years, once a year, we'll do like a nursery workers banquet or some sort of event after the service to try to recruit more nursery workers. So we have a training manual for that, what to do, what not to do. We have the Sunday school curriculum that we use. Of course, this 4-week class has been completely different, but I have a whole, probably thousands and thousands of Sunday school lessons that we choose from. We're going to start next week on basically a through the Bible. It's like an 80 or 90 week lesson. But that's all curriculum. Our class and the ladies' class, we're all on the same page. The children, they have something that's different because they have coloring pages and things like that. Okay. For the membership at our church, and it's all laid out in our constitution and bylaws. And if you would like a copy of this, let me know after service, and I'll print a copy. It's pretty long, and so have fun reading it. But for the qualifications for membership, if somebody wanted to join the church, it's by one of three methods: by baptism in the church. And so if you got saved, or if you're already saved and you come to the church and you get baptized by the pastor here, you're automatically baptized into the church. It just makes sense, unless you refuse, which I don't know why you'd be baptized in the church and not want to be a member. A second would be like a letter of transfer, and that's something traditional. If you're going to transfer from another Bible-believing Baptist church, to show that you left in good standing. Okay, we don't want someone that split the church across town to come over here and split our church. And very rarely does that happen, but occasionally it does. And so pastors want to be aware of that. And we have plenty of people that have transferred. I've never, I don't think I've ever gotten any transfer letters. Okay, but by talking to them and getting a sense of the situation, we've never had any issues there. And the third way to join the church would just be by simple testimony of faith and baptism by immersion. So, you know, Pastor, I haven't been to church in 10 years, but I got saved and baptized by immersion, okay, at such and such church. And if I hear testimony and say, you know what, I believe you're saved and believe you're on the right path, then of course we present for membership. We don't do an official vote on membership, but some churches do it strange. Some churches, they review your membership and everybody in the church has to agree before you can join the church. That does happen, okay? And so if two people in the church don't like you and they don't want you to join, you don't get to join. That's just not how we roll here, okay? And so what we do, Brother Philip comes up and say, Pastor, I got saved and baptized 10 years ago. I'm getting right with God. I want to join this church. I talk to him personally, and here's testimony. And then at the invitation time, I'd say, Brother Philip, I want to get some in the front row. And I'd get up here and I'd say, folks, this is Philip McCardle. He's been saved, baptized by immersion. I've heard his testimony, and I'm recommending him for membership to the church. If you're in favor, please say amen. And everyone says amen. Then I say, if you're opposed, any opposed? And then no one's ever opposed. So, but they could be. They could be. For example, if Philip McCardle has a terrible reputation in the community and somebody stands for the church and say, Pastor, I need to talk to you about this man or this lady, and that would very rarely happen. But if it happened, then we'd say, oh, we're going to put this off and let me talk to that person. And we've never had any, with the voting or anything, had any issues here. But, you know, there has to be a process. Because in the eyes of the bank and the eyes of the law, they don't really care as much how much attenders you have. They're going to say, how many active members do you have? So you have to have a membership process. If you don't have a process, how are you going to join a church if there's no process in the church? And in the book of Acts, the Bible says that they added to the church daily. So there was some sort of organization. It wasn't just this motley crowd of people that, you know, were here. So that's the ways to become a member. All right, the financial structure of our church. Brother James, wind that back 5 minutes. I need 5 minutes. Okay. The financial structure of our church is financially very strong. Talking about a minute. Our money counting process. How do we count the money? You know, obviously we have these offering envelopes here, and these are pre-made, and so they're not perfect. We do not have a specific building fund as of yet. We have the tithe and offering, and so that would go to our general fund. And so how we pay the bills of the church and the main bills would go through the general fund. So if you don't have to fill this out, okay? So if you just toss loose cash in or a check without an envelope and it's not designated, it's going to go to the general fund, okay? And your tithe, your 10% that you owe the Lord, should go to the general fund. That's what that's used for. The missions, you know, we support missionaries, and so if you designate it for missions, it goes to missions. So we don't transfer from missions to the general fund, and we don't transfer from the general fund to the mission. You get a lot of trouble for that. But if you designate for missions, it's going to go into a specific missions account. We use the Southern Bank here in town. We always have, and we have a general fund account and a missions account. We have two different checkbooks. The general fund account has one debit card, which I got my wallet. I think it's still there. And we haven't lost it. We've had it hacked into a couple of times. We haven't lost it, but we have one debit card. The missions account, we only have we checks for it, because the missions, we mainly use that for writing checks on a monthly basis for our missionaries, or if there's a one-time offering. We did earlier this year, a man that I wasn't ready to take him on full time, and so as a missionary, and so we mailed him a $500 check that came from the membership from the missions account of the church. We currently are supporting 3 missionaries, and all that. There's a poster on the wall if you're ever and has all of their information and stuff there. We read their missionary letters on Wednesday. Our banking accounts right now, our general fund is about $85,000, and the missions fund is about $7,500 to $8,000. And so A couple weeks ago, I talked about how our church started. We had a startup fund, and then over time, we had other people outside the church give to support this ministry, and also people inside the church. So we've been wise with the Lord's money. We haven't blown it all, and I'm not driving a Lexus, okay? So we're being wise with the money, and we're saving that and just trying to be good stewards. We keep track of all the finances through QuickBooks. I ran QuickBooks when I had a small business, and so all of these offering envelopes, if you put your name, you don't have to, but if you do, it all gets entered. Okay, so all the money that comes into the church gets entered into the QuickBooks program, which is an accounting program, and all the money that gets spent gets entered into a QuickBooks program. It's not perfectly categorized, okay, and so the maintenance category might have a lot of different things. I'm not an accountant, and maybe one day we'll have an accountant that can, make a perfectly detailed, but it all is all kept track of. And our church constitution states, and what we have done is that if anyone has any question about the finances, if you just let me know, I can print out bank statements if you're a member, and print out bank statements and go through. We could pull everything up. We have an annual business meeting. We normally do that in January, sometimes in February, where we go over, basically all the past finances of the church. We provide giving statements every single year, and that's actually required by law. Okay, if it's over a certain amount. So if it's over, I think normally I do, if it's over $400 or $500 a year, then I'll have a giving statement and it'll be posted, and that's tax deductible. So make sure you take advantage of that. The legal offices of our church, which would be treasurer and secretary, are held by me as the church treasurer and my wife as the church secretary. Of course, when we first started the church, you have your bylaws, your constitution. You go to the local government, you get an EIN number so you can set up a bank account. You have to have all that in order, and you have to have a church treasurer, or you can't be legally renting. You have to have a church secretary. The treasurer and the secretary are the ones that are financially, that are responsible for the financial welfare of the church. So if something bad happens to the church and we spend all the money and the lights can be paid and they're going to come after somebody, they're not going to come after you. They're going to go after the treasurer and the secretary. So, of course, when we started, my wife and I held those positions. I do not intend, I would not want to hold that position as a church treasurer permanently, for obvious reasons. But to call someone to be the church treasurer, that process is laid out in our constitution. But it has to be someone that's willing to assume the responsibility. We're still a young church. 2.5, 3 years is very young. So somebody has to be willing to assume the responsibility of the church. And it has to be someone that I, as a pastor, can trust and work with. And the last thing that I want as a pastor is saying, hey, I'm going to take, brother so-and-so out to lunch. They're having a difficult time. Pastor, you can't do that. That's the last thing. And the way that I was trained, my dad, when he trained me as a pastor, he has a church treasurer, but the church treasurer, they have a great relationship. And so our church is a pastor-led church. And so if the pastor has to go to someone for permission all of the time to do anything, how is he supposed to lead? So there has to be checks and balances, and there has to be accountability there. And that's why the church treasurer is going to have to be a very special person. Maybe that person's sitting in here and is waiting. I don't know. But as of yet, we don't have that. And but anyways, that's something that we're working on. So that's the way it is now, but that's not the way that we want it to be permanently. Now, we do not have any trustees. And normally a church does not vote trustees unless they acquire property. So we don't own this building. We're renting this building. So when we purchase this building back, we would have to vote for trustees, and they're the ones responsible. So there's not really, you don't need trustees unless you're acquiring real estate. Our voting process, and we never do any kind of, outside of a membership vote, which is very general, we never do any kind of specific voting on Sunday morning. So as I mentioned before, if you don't come Sunday night or Wednesday night, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the church that you have no idea about. Because we have a lot of new people on Sunday morning, and the last thing we want to do is just put all this in the church out there. But if we have a big expense come up, this piano was bought for us, but let's say the piano wasn't, and we need to spend $2,000. How we do it is I would come to the church and I'd say, folks, I believe the Lord would have us spend $2,000 to get this piano. We're doing all the work. I'm checking references, doing estimate, all of this stuff. I want you to pray about it. And a week or two would go by. Over those 2 weeks, I'm talking to people individually, trying to get their feedback. Then I'm going to say, folks, I believe the Lord would really have us purchase this piano. I've not had any bad feedback, and we've got estimates. We've done all our due diligence, and we're going to vote next week on this. If you have any questions or any complaints about it, please let me know. So that gives people privately a week. And we've never had anybody come to me and say, Pastor, I don't think we should do this. I don't think it's wise to do that. But if we did, we would stop and we would make sure we had that matter settled. And then how we do the vote is very, very simply. I'll say, folks, I'm recommending to the church that we buy this piano or we support this missionary. If you're in favor of that, please say aye. And then if you're opposed, and that gives somebody a chance if they are opposed. But over that 3-4 week process that I lead our church through that, if there is any opposition, I would find out about it before then. That's the way I was trained, and that's how you have good church business meetings. So if I come to the church right now and I say, folks, I think we need to spend $10,000 in the parking lot, all in favor, boy, a lot of people are going to be opposed just because they have no idea what's going on. You haven't given them a chance. So by leading our church that direction, it has solved. We haven't had any disagreements or arguments about that. There's one person, as the pastor, I am full time, so the church does pay me a salary. Some people have said it's not enough, but I also have other sources of income. I have a rental house that I get income from, so that helps support me and my family. And then my old boss that I worked with him for 5 years. I worked for him for about 2 to 3 years. And when I left the company to come start the church, he wanted to be a part of our ministry, and he kept me on the payroll. And so he sends us, and I can't get him to stop. He just wants to be a part of the ministry. So, but I am on the church's salary, and that's a once a month there. Our missions, of course, we already mentioned how we do our missionaries. If you'll stick around, next month in October, we'll have our Mission Sunday. You'll see firsthand how we would call missionaries, who we would call, and how that process would go. Of course, we have faith promise giving. We ask people to commit over and above their tithes and offerings. And based on those commitments, that's how we plan out the year, how much we can afford. Our church does not have any debt. We do not have a credit card. Of course, we have our utility bills every month. We have subscriptions to our accounting service, to Photoshop, to Adobe Premiere, for the internet service. Those would be some of our regular expenses. Of course, maintenance on the building for big days, advertising, flyers, things of that nature. We are renting this building currently, and so our rent is with the insurance is $1,500 a month, which if you don't know, that's nothing. That's absolutely nothing. And so our sending church, the Chesapeake Baptist Church, they have basically rented the building out to us at the cost of their mortgage payment. Now we need to buy this building back, and so they're not putting any pressure on us. We don't have a deadline, but that is our biggest financial goal would be to buy this building back. We have a guaranteed purchase price at any time. We can buy the building for, I believe it's $275,000. This building a couple of years ago appraised at about $350,000, I think. So it's already worth more than what we would have to buy it for. But to get a loan for a church, obviously, it's expensive. It's very difficult. And I have talked to the bank a little bit about that. But, that's a big, big process there. But there's not a lot of pressure on us time-wise. But we're going to buy this building back. Amen. And we need to buy this building back. We're an independent church, and so we are not affiliated with. We're not part of necessarily a church association, but there are other churches that we associate with. The next couple of days, there's a revival up at my dad's church in Chesapeake. I'm going to take the van. We're going to go. It's going to be a help to me and anyone else from our church that wants to go. And so throughout the year, I will recommend to the church publicly different revivals, churches, though, that are of like faith. And so if you come and it's not a church of like faith and you choose to go there for revival, then that's your business. But I'm not going to support that. I'm definitely not going to recommend it to the church. And so, we make all of our own decisions, the pastor and the voting members of the church, as far as what we teach, what we believe, our finances. So we're not under, even from the very beginning, we weren't under the wing, which is sort of, there's pros and cons of that, of course, because you get a new fresh start and a new pastor starting a church. It could go south real quick. But the Lord has allowed us, with the freedom and the liberty that we have, to be able to go the right direction. And so from the very get-go, there was no handcuffs on me. I could do just about whatever we wanted, And so the Lord has blessed that. The Lord always blesses a pastor-led church, and pastors able to lead. And as I mentioned, we have a lot of details in the bylaws and constitution. There are things such as how to call a new pastor if we had to, how to dismiss the pastor. Hope you don't plan to do that, but if you get enough of y'all against me, you could. And so all of that is in there. And so we have all the structure of a established church. We're just growing. We're still growing. And so our ministries, we want to expand that. But we have all the groundwork that's been laid from day one. Everything that I just mentioned, the structure of our church, the financial, has been in place since the very first day. Well, wanted to mention, I forgot this, on the counting process of the offering envelope, we got distracted. The offering is collected, well, we start with Wednesday night, and then after it's collected, it's locked in that room after service. I take all the offering, put it in a bag, and we lock it in a church safe. And I'm not going to tell you where the safe's at. I'm going to tell you. And then on Sunday morning, the offering is collected again by the ushers. It's locked in there during service. After service, I take the offering, I put it again in the safe. Sunday night, the process is repeated. However, after church Sunday night, Brother James Teachy, Miss Brenda, and Miss Cheryl Squire, they collect the offering and they count it. It's counted by 3 different people. It's all recorded, the check numbers, everything. We save all those records. They take all of that, fill out the deposit slips, put it in a locked bank bag, and it's locked in the presence of all of them, given to Brother Philip, and he drops it off at the overnight bank. So that's how we do the money counting, because we want to be careful with the Lord's money, and we want to provide as much accountability as we possibly can. And praise the Lord. Okay, well, that's just about all. We got just a couple. Are there any questions on that? I know we went over a lot. Brother Bob? So for the first couple of years, this last business meeting in like February, we did a budget. We did not have a printed budget before. And it's hard to do a budget when you don't know the expenses or what things cost. So this last year was a big step. I gave myself migraines for a few days, and I went over the last year, because with our QuickBooks, I can see how much we spent on maintenance and how much we spent on this. And I did put out a budget. And I'm giving you that weird look because we got our next business meeting coming up in February, and the budget was just not adequate as the first one. So we did have a budget that we voted on to apportion money for maintenance and apportion money for this, and then anything outside of the regular portions. As I mentioned, for like maintenance, I don't know what the budget is on that per month to pay from the office, but a few $100s probably. So obviously, when we did these lights were $1,500. So if it's over or anything outside of the regular budget, I brought that to the attention of the church. I went through the 3 or 4 week process of getting everybody on board, and then we voted on it. So we do have that budget set out, and and if you would like a copy of that, I can print a copy, and I'd be more than happy to give that out. And this next business meeting in February, we'll revisit that budget and go through all of that. But for the most part, when our church has not struggled financially, and the Lord's put His blessing upon us, and so when the church isn't struggling financially, and the membership of the church are generally happy with how things are going, it diffuses a lot of potential problems. So that's a great question, Miss Nora. Our church van's going to leave tomorrow at 5:15 p.m. We're going to drive up to Chesapeake. It's about 45 minutes. There's going to be a dinner, and then Brother Jeff Fugett's going to be preaching. Brother Fugett preaches for us every March, and so so he'll be there. But you're more than welcome to ride the church or follow. I'll come pick you up. I'm glad you're coming. Good. Let me put that down. Okay, because I'll forget about you, and you'll be waiting. We did that their first week. She tried to come, and there's just terrible miscommunication on my part, and she waited, and we never came. I won't do that. Any other questions? Yep. Any other questions? Anything? Yes, ma'am. So we don't pay property tax on our vehicle or the property. Of course, we rent, but even when we own it, there's no property tax. However, in North Carolina, we are required to pay sales tax. Now, I've been told that you can keep all your receipts and apply to get all that money back. I've not done that, and I haven't really researched that. Up in Virginia, when I worked for my dad there as his assistant, we had a form, and if we would go anywhere and want to buy something, you could show the form, and you could get it tax exempt. You could also go to like Sam's Club and Home Goods, Lowe's, and they would give you a tax exempt ID. But yeah, not in North Carolina. So when we go to Lowe's, we go to Home Depot, we go to Food Line, to Walmart, all these whatnot, we're paying just what everyone else is paying. But that's a good question. Anybody else? Anything? Right. Michael said, I got a question. Are we done yet? This is my breakfast. Okay. All right. Well, hey, I'm going to go ahead and pray. We'll be dismissed. Thank you all for being a part of this 4 to 5 week class. And boy, if there's any question, maybe I covered something and you'd rather ask me privately, I'm an open book. I'm talking before church, after church, during the week. Next week, we're going to start basically a Through the Bible class, starting with creation next week. And that's going to be an exciting class. It's going to take us all the way through most of the Bible over the next year and a half. So stick with us. Brother Bob Tenney, if I could call on you to close us in a word of prayer.